Welcome to the Not Old Better Show, the show for all of us who aren't old, we're better. Each week, we'll interview superstars, experts, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, all related to this wonderful experience of getting better, not just older. Now, here's your host, the award-winning Paul Vogelzang.
Thank you, and I'm Paul Vogelzang, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Longevity MitoPure Gummies, the first ever longevity gummies powered by MitoPure, a delicious, easy way to put more energy into your day. Today's guest is a legendary storyteller. I think you're just going to love this episode. He has done Outer Limits, The Twilight Zone, just a storyteller par excellence through and through. You know him, of course, as the Oscar-nominated filmmaker behind Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, but he's also done Backdraft, as I say, The Outer Limits, The Twilight Zone, so much more that we're going to talk about today. But what you may not know is that Penn Densham's journey with the camera began when he was just 4 years old, appearing in one of his father's short films, riding an alligator, no less, while the film played alongside the African Queen in theaters. That moment lit a spark that's never gone out. Now, decades later, Penn Densham is returning to the lens, not as a filmmaker this time, but as a photographic artist. His latest work is a stunning reinvention, impressionist nature photography that just shimmers. We're going to have links so that you can see this, and we'll be talking about it, but it is amazing. The emotion, just blurring the line between fine art and film, just beautiful. Penn Densham calls it visual magic. And it's more than just beautiful. It's a personal expression of healing, rediscovery, and creative freedom. You'll hear Penn talk about how his daughter helped reignite his love for photography, why he believes art is a form of courage, and how we can all reconnect with our own creative instincts, whether we're 19 or 79. And as the familiar reflective music behind us plays, this kind of time in our audience's lives shows great recognition. We invite you to lean in, because this is more than a conversation about cameras and cinema. It's about letting go of rules, making peace with our own self-doubt, and finding magic in the everyday world again. Here now with wit, warmth, and wisdom is award-winning storyteller and artist Penn Densham. Penn Densham, welcome to the program.
My pleasure. My pleasure indeed.
Well, I'll tell you, Penn, I am smiling wide, ear to ear, and excited to talk to you. I think this is going to be a great conversation. You are doing some really amazing things, such interesting things, and a life filled with interesting work. I know our audience is just going to be equally excited. And I want to jump right in. I want to talk about your latest work, absolutely. But I want to start with this photo that I found in my research of you. It's on your website too. It's of you. I'm looking at it right now. It's of you riding an alligator. I'm assuming that alligator is alive. And
Absolutely.
I wonder, and you look like you're about, I think I read that you're about 4 years old in those days, and that was part of a documentary perhaps that your parents took. So maybe tell us about that great story, but then tell us what it meant to grow up in a family of filmmakers and how that's just shaped you to this point.
Well, it's a wonderful question. Thank you, because it does mean so much to me.
Yeah.
My folks were making little short films that went in the movie theaters, and they made one on people that kept strange pets, and including telepathic dogs and stick insects. But they took, and I had thought my folks couldn't afford babysitters, because I don't think they really could have me with them other than they didn't have anybody else to look after me. And we went to one place where this lady had alligators and crocodiles in tanks in the walls in her home. And my father was filming them, and I was volunteered to sit on the alligator. And I'd always thought that my mother couldn't have been there that day. But years later, about 10 years ago, somebody had put an article on this particular lady who had these strange pets. And I was contacted, and it turned out there was a copy of the film that still existed. And a professor who studied reptiles had sent me that. And I looked at the film after 60 years and looked at myself on this alligator. And I saw my mother was actually in the film. My mother had passed away when I was 8. And it was extremely moving to see her still alive and to see that. But that experience of being around cameras, I watched as people were magnetized by them. You put a camera up somewhere and you're shooting something, and people gathered. And they took me with them to Wardour Street in London when they went to the distributors. And I remember shaking hands with these older gentlemen as they were shown my parents' movies in the movie theaters in this giant screen. And I'm this little kid watching it. I fell in love with that whole process, looking at it as magic.
Well, thank you, and especially thank you for mentoring and being so inspirational. You absolutely have this amazing resume. You talked a little bit about your home life and leaving home at 15, and I know very early on you did get some amazing opportunities. One that just jumped out at me was this opportunity to use the camera and photograph the Rolling Stones, of all bands. I mean, what an amazing experience. What did you learn from that, and what did you learn about photography after photographing Mick and Keith and that group? My gosh.
Well, I was very scared, and I took my best friend along with me as if he was the tripod carrier. So I had a buddy with me. I was 16, and there was again this desire to do something special, to be noticed, and to try and express myself through the cameras. And I talked my way into the BBC and telling them, how about getting a teenager's candid vision of the Rolling Stones?
Right.
And I was invited backstage, was quite overwhelmed, but they were very friendly. There was open kind of to my suggestions of where they would stand, let me photograph them. I wasn't particularly impressive photographs I took. One of the things I remember particularly is the youthfulness. They were really young and energetic people. And, what we now see at them at 82, I'm going, holy crow, if Mick Jagger can dance for 2 hours on a stage at 82, I've got to do better. I've got, and I work out every day. I do 6 days a week. I'm on a treadmill, and I hate it. I know, and I've tried to find the easiest way to keep my body going, and I've discovered that put a big TV screen in front of the treadmill, put an action movie up, or something that utterly fascinates you, and try and forget that your legs are moving.
Yeah. Mick just does a great job of strutting out there on stage. He's equally inspiring, just as you are, Densham. And I agree with you 100%. It's always fun to watch an action movie, while exercising. I get a big kick out of that. I love to listen to music too, and the Stones is right up there on my playlist. So again, congrats on that wonderful work. And I want to talk to you about your painting. I want to talk about your photography, which is really referred to as impressionist photography, which in my mind brings up the idea of painting. And I have to tell you, it does look like painting. And I looked at it online. We'll have links in our notes today so that our audience can see your wonderful work. But it's really this sense, you can tell that it's your personal evolution, absolutely, but it's kind of letting go of some rules and letting go of perhaps perfectionism and even this idea of self-doubt that you referred to earlier. Where did that permission come from to get started on that and to do that? Because I would imagine that it unfolded gradually, but perhaps it was just one day you took notice and started.
Well, there's this yearning to use cameras has been in my ethos as a person all my life, and I my first experiences were always trying to get it right, trying to do what photography rules demanded of you, so that you could fit in to the goals that they aspired for you. And I found that over the years, I love nature photography, and a lot of our very early short films were nature films as well. But when I was shooting, I ended up emulating Ansel Adams, or I'm emulating, Philip Halsman and his jump book. I'm and trying to get it right. And I ended up, as I was doing my film career, letting my cameras sort of sit and not really using them because I didn't love the material I was turning out. It didn't have dynamics. It wasn't that special. They were nice, good old shot of a hillside, and the road would wind through it, and very pretty. But nothing was casting a spell. And then my daughter, I think she was 14, started using my Nikons, and she had never been taught anything other than she just yearned to take some photos. And I'm looking at her images, which are of odd trees, things that are focused at strange places, the way that the camera's tilted, this thing about keep the horizons right, and all those things that I've been taught. And the things had poetry and were mystical, and they were black and white. And I looked at some the other day, just again to familiarize, and they still feel that way because they were out of the box. They were not familiar. And I started to think, oh my God, I must be doing this wrong. What happens if I actually surrender to intuitions and search out, trying to find ways to take photographs that the what if, as opposed to what am I supposed to do? And it started on a journey. I also read a small article somewhere said, why are you holding the camera still? Why are you, because you're shooting a photograph and you're supposed to breathe and release the shutter. And what happens if you actually shook the camera while you take the photograph? And you go, well, people are going to think you're stupid. And
what a concept.
I was in the Okanoki swamp with some friends of ours, and we're in a boat, and I'm surrounded by the water, which is full of particulates, and it's like a black mirror dancing. And we're going through, and there's a wave being created off the bow of this tiny little boat, and it's full of sunlight. And I've got my wife who bought me a digital camera. It's the same one that I bought my son to see if she could re-inspire me to take photos. But they're holding me back from really discovering what a camera can achieve, because no one has ever thought that one could shake a camera at a tree and it would look like the tree's full of life and full of the atoms of life and full of the breath that causes the whole world to be able to breathe oxygen. I mean, suddenly shaking a camera at a tree or making an exposure that is blindingly white but has colors coming through that express what a flower feels like. Suddenly I'm seeing things that I have to change my own emotional approach to my work and overcome my imposter syndrome, because this is silly, this is disposable, this has no point of view, or I'm on a journey to find something that's never existed before. And that excites me.
I will tell you that among the many, many impressive things that you've done, Penn, I thought I was really touched by, and you just mentioned your daughter, but I was really touched by the way in which you call out and give credit to your daughter for rekindling some of your creativity, particularly with cameras, and the fact that you've gotten a chance to work alongside her. I think that's one of the greatest things that parents can do. It takes a great deal of patience, perhaps, love of that child, and courage. Do you feel like courage has been part of your journey, particularly about being a parent and bringing your daughter along with you?
It's been because my mother died when I was young, and my father had a terribly destructive alcoholic who took the medical version of speed. Our home was destroyed from the point of view of my sense of sanctuary, and my sister and my brother. And so I never knew, and I was scared about having kids if I could have a family in a way that was healthy. And luckily, my wife and I ended up having a son, and I realized the beauty of having a child, the extraordinariness of living your own life through the eyes of your child growing up and seeing yourself, and realizing my mother, who I don't have much memories of despite being that age, must have had certain things that she gave to us, and live to long enough to be able to influence us. And I found that having had children, I wanted to write stories that affected the world they were growing up in. And so Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which was a movie that I wrote on spec, it
Congratulations again on
its
that.
real purpose was to try and make a story where an Arab and a Christian could actually collaborate with each other instead of kill each other.
Wow.
That a horribly spoiled rich baron's son would end up being willing to fight for the future of his peasants' children. And those were what I call the makers of life. And I was around Stallone, who I'd actually been introduced to by Norman Jewison when he was making Fist with him. And Stallone and Schwarzenegger at that time were making a lot of movies where killing people was celebrated, like Commando, and having a lot of bodies was thought to be success. And I'm looking at how much effort we're all putting in to bring our children into the future. And I wanted to celebrate the people that were willing to stand the ground and make that future possible. The firemen, the people that step in between us and the evil to stop it. And so Robin Hood to me was a way of making a statement about life, that its values and the humanistic strengths that each of us need, that morality that I see as being embedded in the healthy human being. And that process was one of 3 studios telling me they thought Robin Hood was the stupidest idea they'd ever heard. No one wants to see guys with swords. They want to see guys with guns. And I was sort of going to quit on it. And I quit on another project that was a passion project. And I call my passion projects life scripts because they're not fitting a formula. They're not fitting what the studios are asking for, what they claim they're buying. And I was going to quit, but our assistant said, I think that's a really great idea. If you try to write it, I'll do my best to support you. And it was that ephemeral piece of support that started me writing it. And inside our company, there was a sort of like, how can you put an Arab in Robin Hood? And as I started to write it, then it gestalted, because sometimes you can't communicate what you feel as an artist until you've actually put it out and made it more of a reality. Because the instincts are there, the certainty that something can come out of you is there, but it doesn't have this ironclad certainty. And as I started to write, I'm writing thinking, oh, it's not all that good. And, I've got this thing where Robin is going to meet Maid Marian after coming back from the wars. And he walks into this home and this very large lady comes out and he goes, oh, the years have been kind to you, trying to be polite. And then this person jumps out and jumps on him with a mask on and takes him down because he's a man and realizes it's Marian. And I thought, that's so corny. It's so obvious. And my partner, John, who's reading these pages, is like, no, just keep going. Don't question yourself. And what I've learned is that as you create, frequently you cannot also demand perfection of yourself or even judge the quality of what you've written. And sometimes if you're creating something, it's vital that you put it aside and look at it a few days later to see that you're not in that create mode, which is sort of like send. And you need to be able to step back and then you can look at it and then you can see, wow, it's not so bad.
You're listening to the Not Old Better Show Art of Living interview series. I'm Paul Vogelsang. If you're just joining us, my guest today is the legendary filmmaker and photographic artist Penn Densham, whose work, both in Hollywood and now through his impressionist nature photography, has always carried a deep emotional undercurrent. We've heard how storytelling shaped him from childhood, how personal loss and persistence led him into film, and now letting go of perfection opened the door to something new. Now, in this next part of the conversation, we go even further into the heart of creative vulnerability, the unexpected gift of mentorship, and why some of the most powerful stories are the ones we tell without words. Penn Densham also shares how, even after decades of success, the biggest risk is still the most personal, creating from the soul without asking permission. Stay with us. There's more wisdom ahead and a few surprises too. Hey, it's Paul. We talk about fitness and exercise and health on the show all the time. And I personally, I'm always looking for something real to help me feel more like myself again, more energy, better recovery, and staying strong, not just surviving, but thriving. And I think I've found it, and I want to share it with you as I always do. They're called MitoPure gummies, and yes, they are as tasty as they sound. But these aren't your average gummy vitamins. These are the first ever longevity gummies, powered by something called urolithin A. That's urolithin A. Look it up. It's a mouthful, but here's what matters. This is the only clinically proven form that helps your cells turn damage into real sustained energy. That means more power for your workouts, faster recovery, sharper thinking, and just feeling more like you again. Think about this. After age 50, our bodies start slowing down at the cellular level. MitoPure works there. In fact, after just 16 weeks, people increase their muscle strength by up to 12%. That's serious stuff. What I love? No pills. These gummies sit on my kitchen counter and remind me every morning, take one, feel better. And for someone who's tried literally every wellness trend under the sun, these actually do something. So if you're looking to add life to your years, not just years to your life, this is the place to start. Try MitoPure gummies now. My friends at Timeline are offering an exclusive 20% off just for listeners of the Not Old Better Show. Head to timeline.com/NOB to get started. All of this will be in our show notes today. That's timeline.com/NOB. Your cells will thank you. Thanks, everybody. Penn Densham is our guest today. Penn Densham is a award-winning filmmaker, written a best-selling book. He just was talking about it, titled Riding the Alligator. Just recently translated the book into Chinese. Penn Densham is a frequent speaker on the subjects of film and creativity. Penn, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of your film work because, I mean, and you referred to Robin Hood, but you've also been responsible for other iconic franchises like The Outer Limits, The Twilight Zone. These amazing films, award-winning films. And I wonder how that work, perhaps the science fiction parts of that work, translate into the work that you're doing with nature photography, because they seem to connect, but there's also there's a gap there too.
Well, the beauty of being asked to revive The Outer Limits was, and the studios had asked me to create a series that was sort of like mimicking other TV series like The X-Files. They wanted me to put two characters together and copy The X-Files. And I talked with some of my friends like Frank Darabont, and what they said is, no, that this is a anthology series with every story is a parable. Every story is its own faceted jewel of a way of shining science fiction onto a human being and making the sun distill on them so they move quicker. And so that they were fountains of the imagination. And that's the way I approached them. I also approached them, and I got to know, for instance, the original creator, Joe Stefano of the Outer Limits, and I celebrated the fact that I was able to bring the Twilight Zone back, but celebrated Serling, who I thought really was a genius. I saw myself as just bringing those great gifts of telling stories that had perspectives on life that were unique, but also biologically always the same. It's just a different way of looking at ourselves. And in a way, when you're looking at the profundity of imagination being used, I'm trying to use imagination now to engineer a different vision for how I use my cameras. But the privilege of working with all these other people that contributed to these stories and seeing the things they said about life and the cautionary stories. We would make stories where people get too much of something and they're too selfish and they end up losing what they gained. And, each of these were like the ability to make a tiny feature film in 20 minutes or half an hour, and to be able to bring in entirely different actors every week and entirely different sets, and 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 just constantly stay refreshed. And that was the beauty of them.
Yeah, so impressive, wonderful work. Congratulations on everything you are doing and everything that you've done. Just an amazing career. I think for our audience, many who are over age 50, reinvention is something that is on a lot of our minds. It can be an exhilarating time, but it can also be scary. Certainly, kind of approaching that. How did you work through some of the periods of kind of self doubt in order to kind of move beyond where you were and now get to where you are? Kind of bypass some of these cautionary stories that you're referring to.
I think finding a purpose in what you do is a great healing. In my 20s, I got to a place where I had founded a commune and rented out rooms to all kinds of artists and people. My wife had moved in to begin our relationship, and we had our 50th anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
I quit my job and tried to start a film, and I had all the stressors. And and I really went down, and my doctor gave me some tranquilizers, and I thought, oh, this is even worse. Not only am I now stressed, but I'm actually losing touch with who I am. And I found this guy called Hans Selye, who was a doctor in Canada who studied stress and tried to find a biological, philosophical way of living that met actually how our bodies worked and how our cortisols and adrenalines worked. And he came up with what he called ego. I'm blanking on it for a second. But what he did was he said that if you live with a purpose for other people, and you live, because all human beings are designed to try and find the best opportunity for themselves and to be the most positive for themselves. And he called it egotistical altruism. And what he said was that if you live for the benefit of others, but you use all of your strengths to get your own identity in it, and don't do what other people want you to do, but whatever that altruism is that's meaningful to you is the altruism that will allow you to develop yourself. And that can be, you want to make art that makes people happy, or it can be you want to volunteer and make changes in the way that people are helped in the homeless, or it can be that you want to help people find homes, that you're going to start selling real estate, but you're selling it with an altruistic purpose to make those people's lives better. And he said that then you can live with full passion, and this sense of self-criticism is negated because you're doing things that you know are valuable to the community based on your own perspective of what is valuable. He didn't want you to meet the community goals of what was valuable, but wanted you to look in yourself and see how those threads came through you, and then to articulate those in the choices you make. And that's how I think you can reinvent yourself, because once you're retired, you have the chance to look at what is meaningful to you. And it's also may not be the first thing you try. And again, this is like, don't put all the eggs in one basket. Look at this as an adventure of going forward and seeing where and what appeals, and take the chance to meet people and not have it work out, and then go, okay, that's a course correction. When I was, I taught a few times at USC. I wanted to found what I called the creative entrepreneurism class, which was to help young people who are creative find tools to be able to look after themselves into their careers so that they could take on the challenges. And I found many of them, the biggest fear when leaving the school was they would make one choice that would screw up their whole lives. And what I went out of my way was to try and identify that, no, you're kind of like this beautiful navigation system. It's okay to go off course, and discover things you never knew that you would find. It isn't about one choice will destroy your future. It's about looking at all the options and not seeing the bad choices as failures, but seeing them as vindications of how you could find what you would really do. And my daughter chose to go to a college called Sarah Lawrence. And Sarah Lawrence was at that time the most expensive school in America. And I'm the guy who quit school at 15. And, but I love that she wanted to go there because their method of teaching people is you couldn't specialize. They wanted you to discover yourself. So they had kids that were taking theater arts and pre-med. And the goal was, and they had a mentor who was one of the staff, like a Don in the English teaching system, where they could help you get through the system if necessary. And I thought, this is so cool. They're really, the goal is to find who you are and not be processed into who someone wants you to be. And I ended up actually giving the parent address one year. And just again, this true passion for wanting people to have an openness about themselves and discover themselves and to overcome the fear of failure, because this failure is only failure if you see it through a negative filter. If you see adversity as opposed to adventure, then you pull yourself down, which comes back to what is it that you feel so strongly about that makes it adventure. And back to Hans Selye, he said there's distress and eustress. And eustress is when you get in balance with yourself and that wonderful composite, this mosaic of things that created us, and doing things that make you feel good at the same time helping others was his process. And living that way, you should be able to rediscover things that maybe you had instincts about when you were young, and then the job system processed you and held you back. And as we were saying earlier, I tried to make a TV series a long time ago called The Butterfly Years, where we were going to sort of show, your nice little furry caterpillar, everybody strokes you as a kid. Then they stick the chrysalis on you, and it's the job and the family. And there's and then 55 or 65, suddenly there's your wings, you're off. And what do? Well, what I think is hopefully what you do is you get the chance to reflect on, what did I never get to do? What was my real joy that I never got to explore, and not expect it to be some perfect whole, but maybe it could be an intuition, and maybe it's how you search it out is the part of the joy of the process until you find the things that fulfill you. And my goal is my imperfections. I want to share them, and my fears I want to share, because I think those are part of the beauty of being sensitive. And I was sitting with a lady at a dinner one night, and she turned out to be a neurologist. And I said, why are we artists so anxious, and why? And she went away, and she came back the next day and said, I think it's because you're sensitive. And I thought, oh, I can live with being sensitive. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so when I put my work out, I'm sensitive. When I create something new, I'm sensitive, but I'm pushing through because I have enough other people supporting me. And the reason I'm on these on this journey to expose my work is that a lady who used to work with me at MGM when we were making films and television so passionately believes in my photography. She's been pushing me out and making me do these things. And the joy of it is I'm discovering myself as I do it. By talking to you, Paul, and you're letting me ramble. Thank you.
No, I'm enjoying.
I'm learning more about me, and I'm 78, and I go, that's so curious to me. I'm like, I'm actually this fantastically interesting age. I didn't know what 78 would feel like. And I'm so excited still to discover where I can go, where my art is going to go, what can I do with it? And I have 2 or 3 allies that are non-destructive, non-difficult, and I advise stay away from the downers, the people that want to criticize you to help you. That'll never work. Well, that's not true. They don't have the imagination to see how it could work, or they don't have the stamina to stay with it until it works. Another catchphrase I use is I say, it's like Einstein said, I'm not smarter than other people. I stay at things longer. And I've been through 5 careers in a sense. I worked for other people when I was young, didn't like what they were doing in some cases in the film and business, and then started my own company, and then started making short films, and then learned that business, which is part of it is you have to promote yourself. You can't expect people to understand or find you. Part of being responsible to the things you create is also to figure out how to let people know the value of them and how they can look at them in the same way you do. And I call that building a bridge backwards. And it's an effort. You have to do it, but they don't know yet how great this will feel. And you can't expect them to understand it necessarily the way that you do. So you have to help them. And you have to find terminology that brings them into your world and opens up their doors so that they can see the beauty in what you see and why it excites you.
Penn Densham, what a thrill. I really appreciate your time. I'd love to have you back too. Just selfishly, I would love to talk again. I know you have multiple projects. You're a very busy man, but please think of us in the future. I know our audience is going to benefit so much from this conversation, talking about all of your work and your inspiration of creativity. But please join us again. Have a wonderful holiday. And I'll look forward to kind of following your next steps.
Thank you, Paul.
And that was Penn Densham, filmmaker, storyteller, and now photographic artist, reminding us that creativity doesn't retire and imagination doesn't age. Whether through motion pictures or motion-filled images, Penn's work continues to inspire us to see beauty, emotion, and meaning in the world around us and in ourselves. For a complimentary digital collection of Penn's nature photography, you can find his work at penndenshamphotography.com. We will have links in our show notes today so that you can see this. It's truly a gift. Remember, today's episode is brought to you by Longevity MitoPure Gummies, the first ever longevity gummies powered by MitoPure, a delicious, easy way to put more energy into your day. To hear this episode again and to explore our full catalog of conversations with inspiring guests just like Penn Densham, visit us online at notold-better.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at notoldbetter and on Instagram at notoldbetter for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and much, much more. This is a production of NOBS Studios. I'm Paul Vogelsang. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Be well, be safe. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. Thanks, everybody. I hope you will join me again next time.